Can you accept that you're imperfect? And at the same time, can you also believe that you are valued, you're admired, you're appreciated, and you're a leader? Hi, my name is Laura Beauparlant. I'm the founder of Lab Creative, the author of Brand Chemistry, and the creator of Brand Camp. And today I am super excited to be chatting with my client, my friend Claudia. She is a personal development, leadership, and communication coach, and she has a deep passion for helping others. And we just were chatting briefly before this, and I just love Claudia's energy and just her passion for what she does. Now, welcome, Claudia. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Laura. It's so nice to be here with you.
Okay, so I saw something you posted the other day, and I brought that up, that you shared about, everyone's setting resolutions and goals, and it's the beginning of the year. And you said, don't set goals, do this first. So before we dive into it, and I'm sure it's related to, accepting imperfection, but what is it that you think people should be doing before they set those New Year's resolutions and goals?
I like to tell my clients, I write that in my blog every year, which is actually to turn around and look back. It's so easy to immediately want to set, bigger goals and further goals and feel we haven't done anything. And we never actually look back and say, wait, breathe in. Where were you at the beginning of last year? What happened the past months? And I started asking them just simple questions like, what should you celebrate? What are you proud of? What did you learn? Because before you run into just setting more goals without even thinking about it, we really have to embody and feel those successes or those difficulties that we surpassed or those learnings. And only then can we really turn the chair around and say, okay, but from that new place where you can see what you did, where do you want to go now? Because
I love that.
goals are, they're nice, but unless they're specific and unless we stop on the way to see them and value them, New Year's resolutions really don't help too much because by March, nobody has done them. But unless we really come from a place, but wait, I'm learning and I'm stopping and I'm celebrating every step I take.
Yeah. I think we don't do that often enough, that turning back. And we actually just went through this. We got our kids to do this too. So, both my husband and I, we did like that year in review, like, what did we do? What happened last year? And we were like, holy crap, like, look at all the things we did. And it's so easy to just get on with life. And you're like, oh yeah, remember that thing we did or that experience. And it doesn't mean everything went perfect, but when you look backwards, it's often amazing to see how far you've come, and not just to see where you are, but who you are.
And what you've learned and what challenges you've overcome and how are you feeling now, and bring those challenges forward and bring where you are. And then from that place, it's the right place to look forward.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Always remember to look backwards. And I used to be the worst at that. I would always be like, what's next? Like, what's next? And forget to look back and celebrate those wins. So it's a practice that, you have to remember to do those things. It's a practice.
It is a practice. And I think the second word is the most important one, not only to look back, but to celebrate. Because any step you take, even if it didn't work out, any movement you did, anything that you accomplished, anything that you learned, it's actually a celebration. And we don't do that. And we think the world should celebrate for us, but it starts with us celebrating to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And growth comes in the discomfort, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about this imperfect self thing. Actually, I was chatting with somebody today who is sort of a self-described perfectionist. So let's talk about this. How can we embrace our imperfect self? What does that even mean?
It means that we like it or not. To me, the definition of being a human being means that you're imperfect. And you can try to be as perfect as you want, and you can try to change everything you dislike about yourself. There's always going to be a part that is imperfect. where you fail, where you make mistakes, and that you dislike about yourself. And the moment that you understand that imperfection, with my daughter, since she was very little and now she's 23 and we still laugh at it, we say we're perfect at being imperfect. And it's liberating when you can actually believe that. And to me, it has become almost like a mission to help people truly, but truly embrace that imperfection. Because we all say it easily, but what I say by accepting is that you need to know it. Um, I like to do an exercise with my clients that can I tell you about it? That
Yeah, absolutely.
I do it, I would say, with almost every single client. It doesn't matter if they're the CEO of the largest company or they're, a student. It's the same type of exercise. And what I ask them to do is to take two circles in a piece of paper, large circles, and then write the word "and" in between. And then I ask them to put a happy face in one side and a sad face in the other. And I didn't say good or bad because it doesn't really matter if it's positive or negative, good or bad. It's how I feel about it. If it makes me feel good or if I dislike it. And then I ask them to start writing in both sides. What are the things they really like about themselves? And what are the things they dislike about themselves? Some people have a really hard time writing the things they like about themselves, which is a little bit sad to even think about it, how hard it can be for them. And I have to tell them, but wait, I already know this about you and this about you, and you're not putting it there. And let's feel it more. And others have a harder time understanding, wait, what do I dislike about me? And how can I learn to live with it? Because what I'd like to try to see is once you can really see it, it's like, and that's you. That is the amazing, wonderful, imperfect you. And that is who the world needs in every relationship and everything you do in the world.
Yeah,
And it's liberating because you could do this about relationships, you could do this about work, but it's mainly about you. There is always those two sides.
I love that. I think if that, what is the definition of perfect? It's like, what is the definition of normal? And if everybody was always the same, if everybody just was like, I think life would be boring. And I think our imperfections and our quirks or whatever you want to call it is what makes us probably more interesting people in some ways.
It's also makes ourselves not be so hard on ourselves. I see so many people talk, I want to be happy and I want to be fulfilled. And I'm like, wonderful. But being happy means you're going to have difficulties, challenges, and you're going to have sad days. And being fulfilled means you still have to do parts of your job that you dislike. It's okay. You need both. Life is not only the happy, nice feelings. Life has also that other side, which is full of learning and understanding. And only until you really know yourself and accept yourself do things really change.
Yeah, I love that. I know we've got people watching. If you're here, if you've got questions for Claudia, you want to join in on the conversation, feel free to post in the comments wherever you're watching this, and we can definitely address those. So, okay, now we've worked towards, accepting our imperfect selves. And I think it's a work in progress for people. I think it's like everything. It's like setting goals. It's like mindset stuff. You're going to constantly hit kind of new levels as you move through life. Something else that I know we talked about when we worked together was around harmony, and that harmony in work and life and relationships. And I think accepting your imperfect self absolutely plays into that harmony that you would want to experience in those relationships. So can we talk a little bit about when you've accepted your imperfect self, how does that impact the harmony that you have in those relationships?
So great question. But let me just go a little bit. You said something about, it's a constant learning. I like to call it
Mm-hmm.
the dance of life. You never stop dancing. And sometimes it works great and sometimes it doesn't. And you have to go back. And, the first time I said, okay, you're responsible for your happiness. Nobody else can do it but you. And it's a never ending journey. It was like, oh no, that's too long. And it's me that's responsible. That was like, I can't breathe. But that's the reality. And that's part of this dance of imperfection, of it's only us responsible for accepting us and seeing it and valuing it and changing what we want to change. And it's a forever changing. which is the beauty of it, because we can redefine and change until the day we die, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So then, to relationships in harmony. Here is the thing. Unless you truly accept your imperfection and who you are, you can't really show up authentically, openly, vulnerably. You can show things that are a bit scary, that make you a human being, because you first have to accept it. Now, I don't mean that in relationships, then you have to show the whole world everything you dislike about yourself. That's not the idea. You can decide how much or little you open the door, but it means that you really embrace it and are willing, when you feel safe enough, to open that door to the other person. But the harmony, and here's the hard part, means that you have to accept that the other person in front of you has the same imperfections and that they won't be able to do everything like you want. They won't be able to understand you like you want. They won't be the person you want them to be because they also have both sides, things that they like about themselves and things they dislike about themselves. And they're showing up in the relationship just as imperfectly. And harmony is about that dance of beautiful, magnificent, wonderful things with the dirty, messy imperfections of us as human beings that create this messy, amazing relationship.
I love that. I love the description of a dance because a dance can change, right? It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be fun, it can be, sensual. You could step on somebody's toe. You could, elbow. Like there's moments in a dance that can be beautiful, that can be fun, that could be, a mistake, whatever that is. But it's then how do you move through that? And it's about that dance. And I love that description. I mean, I was a dancer for many years, so that just that visual it conjures up for me, it's really beautiful and helps to really solidify the idea.
And to me, when you say dance, and I'm hearing you talk, is it's about movement. When somebody says, I want to be happier and fulfilled, it's about the movement of taking steps to get you there. And many times it's without even knowing what's going to happen or where am I going. And I mean, it might be the wrong step. But as long as you're in movement, you'll get there.
Yeah. I think that absolutely, when you stay stuck, you're not going to accept, and the other, like, it's just, when you're like, feet are in mud, you're not going to be able to move forward
And
in
that's
that.
when nothing happens. When you're stuck,
Yeah.
that's when your truly life becomes heavy.
Hmm.
When you're imperfectly in movement, it doesn't matter that it's imperfect. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter that you may fall in the middle of your dance. You'll stand up and you'll start again. But movement is important.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're dancing, right? You've got that movement. How do you now communicate? Right? I know you're a communication coach. You talk a lot about that language, right? So is it spoken? Is it nonverbal? Like, how do you define that communication, and how do you really communicate what you really need and desire in your life?
First, you need to know what you really need and you desire. And to me, that sometimes is the hardest thing I see people not being able to do. You don't know how many clients I have that say, I want to feel respected, acknowledged. Put the word that you want there. And I'm like, wonderful. What is the other person supposed to do so that you feel acknowledged or respected or whatever word? And they're like, I don't know. That's their problem. That's
Mm,
how I want to feel. And I'm like, oh no, unless you know what specific behavior the other person is supposed to do, the other person has no idea how to do it. And it's amazing how hard it is to say, but this is how I want to feel. That's that's nice. It's a great step, but it's not enough in relationships. You have to be able to clearly and specifically communicate your needs. Because if I say I want to feel acknowledged, the other person's their eyes are going to roll. I'm like, what do they want from me? Like, I don't know, because the way I feel acknowledged is not the way you feel acknowledged. I like to say, and I'm having a birthday in a week, and I like to say I've been married for 30 years, and for the first 10 years of our lives, Laura, me and my husband just had fight over every one of our birthdays because I come from a place that I like to be the queen of the queens. That's my day. That's the way I grew up. I want to big everything. It's my day. He could actually care less about his birthdays. He comes from a family that, yeah, you can give him a hug in the morning, maybe a cake. He really doesn't need anything. And I would go out of my way on his birthdays and he would say, maybe thank you. And I would be expecting so much on mine and nothing would happen until we finally got to this expectation of this, I'm not going to do anything for your birthday. And he goes, fine. And he really is happy. And I now tell him exactly what I want for mine. I want this. I want to
Mm,
go here. This is the birth, this is the present I want. This is how I want to be it. And it's worked because we finally moved to ask specifically for what I need and not expect the other to need the same thing as I do because they don't, and they don't understand those needs.
that is such a great example. So it makes me think of love languages. And we actually, I did that. And we actually did it with our kids too, because we noticed that they were always fighting about how they would show each other love, which sounds strange for like two, boys at like their ages, but it was like, he doesn't love me because he doesn't tell me or he doesn't show it. And we realized that they were actually getting into conflict because one needs the words and the other needs the physical like action. And now they're like, this is how I should, like, they've actually learned how to communicate with the other. Like, just because I don't do this doesn't mean I don't love you. And I'm like, that's such an interesting way now to hear our kids communicating in that way because they understand, or they're trying, or they're starting to understand how to communicate with each other about what their needs are and how they reflect things back.
And it's for love and romantic relationships, it's for family relationships, but it's just as much for work relationships.
Absolutely.
Or, we were talking also even for work, if you don't ask somebody for what you need, they're not going to share your post. If I don't ask for other things, they won't know what I need. And I think the
Yeah.
important part is first to do the work of knowing yourself. Well, this is what I need. And then finding the right way to say it. It also depends, how you say it, where you say it, to ask for what you need. You may not get it because sometimes they won't want to get it, but
Mhm.
there's a bigger chance that a communication will happen. And so, what do we do now? How do I make you feel part of the team? How do I show you respect? Once we talk about it, although I might not get everything, at least the other person or I understand also the person in front of me.
Okay, I love this. So, how do people, let's just backtrack because I think it's great to be able to communicate and do all this, but you made the comment like they have to first figure out what they want and what they desire. Yes, they want that feeling, but what does that look like? So, do you have any, tips or any little things for people to start digging? I'm sure it's a bigger exercise, but like, what are a couple of little things that people watching this could walk away with? Knowing, okay, I can now start to dig into how I want to, communicate or how I want to feel and what I would desire.
Let's start with when you're feeling something. I love there's so many good books around there today about feelings. When you feel something, that's great information. See it as information that I need to decode. What is it trying to tell me? When I'm triggered, when I'm in a conflict, when I feel lonely, what am I feeling that way? What is happening? What are the things that are making me feel that way? Instead of trying to say, oh, I shouldn't feel lonely or I should just throw it down the buzzer. It's actually good information. I remember like 2 years ago, I was really feeling lonely. And I'm like, okay, why am I feeling this lonely? Like life is good. But then I worked on it a little bit. It was in the middle of the pandemic. I worked from Zoom. I'm all the time at home. My husband started going out into the office. He didn't really ask me about work, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I'm like, oh, I feel lonely, and that's why I'm being mad at him. But what is it making me mad? It's because I'm lonely. And then I kept on going for a few more weeks actually, and said, oh, what I really need from him is for him to ask me more and be more involved in my work. I need him to ask me how my day went and read my blog post and tell me how it is because I don't In the pandemic, I don't have anybody else. Once I understood that, then I had to find the right place. And I took him, and we sat down and I said, I need you to hear something from me, not as a criticism, but as something I need from you. So I set the theater, I set the stage for it. And then
Yeah.
I just said, I need this from you. And then I let it go. And I thought, okay, maybe he didn't hear me. But he started changing. And like 6 months on the road, he just said, aren't we lucky that we can have those difficult conversations? And I laughed. But it's first, if you're feeling in any way, there's a reason you're feeling that way. Ask yourself, what is that feeling trying to tell me? Why do I feel that? What is the information what is the need or the value that's not being met here? Or maybe that it is and I want more of it. And then what would the person in front of me need to know about it or do about it that I want them to tell me? And again, I think relationships, professional or personal, are the same thing. They're still human beings relating to each other. And then you need to find the right time to ask it and ask it in a way that is not a criticism. You'll never ask me about my work. That wouldn't have
Mhm.
worked. But it's more like, I need this from you. Could I ask you to ask me daily about my work? That's very different. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit how I would recommend. And of course, if you can't do it by yourself, ask for help. Talk with a friend, talk with a colleague, talk with a coach to get an understanding of what is it that I truly need in my life.
Yeah. I love that. One thing that I found was really helpful for me was kind of making a list of kind of things that I desire and then really looking under a microscope to see, is this something I think I should desire or that I actually desire? I put that word should. Should I desire doing this because of programming, because I'm a woman, because I'm a mother, because of I'm a wife, whatever those things are, the societal expectations, or is this something that I really truly deep down desire? That took a lot of time and effort to kind of go through that and to sit with that. But there can be a discomfort too in discovering that you don't truly desire something that is a societal norm
And that,
or an expectation.
oh yes, and the shoulds and have tos and the always and never, I like every time I say them, I'm like, do I really want to say them? Do I really mean them? Because I try not to use them too much. It's not. And it's also, let's start back with my imperfect self, the things I dislike about myself. Some I can change, but some I ask my clients, what are you willing to accept about yourself? Yes, you can change, but others, I'm conservative with money. I like it or not, I'm not going to be a risk taker. I've never been. I don't like, anything that has to do with too much risk or velocity or, slides or it's okay. That is
Yeah.
who I am. And I can say no to downhill skiing to my husband and say yes to, snowshoeing. Doesn't matter. It has to first come to what do I want and not what do others expect from me.
Yeah. I think everybody just needs to like sit with that, right? What do I really want versus what is expected of me?
And I can add, in relationships sometimes, I may decide that I'm willing to do something, although it's not what I want, because I want the benefit that it will bring to my relationship. But then I'm also doing it out of a choice of knowing what it will do for me. Or even in my work. When we started working together, I hated sales and marketing. But if I wanted a good income and a lot of clients, I needed to decide how I was going to do it in a way that felt right because I wanted the outcome that it could bring me.
Yeah. And that's getting into the discomfort, right? And that's where the growth happens.
Oh, yes.
So I want to ask you this. Now, I've recently sort of changed some of my language and my messaging, which I know a lot of people have been noticing. And I'm really focusing on helping people build a legacy brand. And I say ignite a revolution. Now, when I say ignite a revolution, it's sort of that internal Like, what has to shift in you, right? In order to make the change that you want to have and do something big or whatever it is, it starts with that internal revolution. So I'd love to know, what is your story of revolution?
Hmm. You asked me that tricky question like 2 minutes before we came online, and
I wanted to like at least seed it for you so it wasn't just out of left field.
and you know, it could be so many things. It could be some of the major changes I've had in life. It could be that I had cancer at a young age. It could be that I moved countries or changed careers. But I'm going to go back to the one that immediately came up. I think that what ignited a revolution is when I truly and absolutely accepted my expertise in what I bring to the world. When I accepted those imperfections, but I was able to bring them easily with me as an and focus more on the wonderful things I had in the side that I like about myself. And the moment that I could truly do that and bring them both together and say, I'm imperfect, but boy, do I have something to give the world and help others, it became easy. It ignited a revolution of acceptance. And it's personal. Nobody even has to know you do it, but it completely can change the things that you do in the world.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. I'm going to go back and just rewatch that again so I can, because it's always so powerful to hear people describe that, because we've all been through different things in our lives. We all have our own stories, but it's what we do with those stories. It's who we transition into. And I do agree that really accepting your imperfect self and being willing to figure out what it is you really desire in life and then communicate that and ask for it, that's a powerful way to live.
It's a very powerful way to live that permits you still to go through the challenging times and the moments of down, but come out of them so much faster. You know,
Absolutely.
we're all going to have those ups and downs constantly, also in not accepting ourselves and feeling uncomfortable about ourselves. And, we talked at the beginning about celebration. I'm like, who has anything to celebrate for? It's okay. Just breathe it in and then remind yourself of all the good things that you have and all the things that you want. And what is that revolution and what can you bring to the world? And suddenly you come out of it so much faster because everybody hearing us, and I believe everybody in this world, has both of those things, the things that we are absolutely amazing at and that we love about ourselves, and the things that we dislike about ourselves. And the idea is, how do I accept the ones I dislike and put effort into changing those that I really want to change? And also put the effort to reminding me and the world on those strengths that I have, on those qualities that I have, and to use them as I use my voice in the world.
Love it. Claudia, how can people work with you? How can they connect with you? What would be, share some details so people can follow and connect with you.
I would invite them to go to my website, which I'm sure they can find in the link, or LinkedIn, and just connect with me and have a conversation with me. I love helping people find themselves. I call it personal development with a lot of emphasis in the whole person approach, who you are as a whole person, wherever you want to take it. And I love doing messy things around relationship, professional or personal, and how you individually can change your relationships by changing you. And I write a monthly blog, which I love writing, and I invite everybody to subscribe.
Amazing. We'll make sure we share those links in the comments so everyone can follow Claudia. Claudia, thank you so much for joining me today. I always love our conversations. You just have this peaceful, just beautiful way, an eloquent way that you communicate. Obviously, that makes sense considering what you do. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with my audience.
Thank you. And if I can tell your audience, I want to thank you specifically for helping me accept my brand as a coach and for helping me find that imperfect voice of what I brought that made me different, because it truly made a difference in my business in the past 2 years. It was just a pleasure. And I invite anybody to work with you.
Ah, Thank you, Claudia. I absolutely adored working with you as well. So we will leave it there. We're both big fans of each other, obviously. Thank you again, Claudia, and thank you everyone for watching. If you've got comments or questions for Claudia, post them in the comments or connect with her directly. And thanks again, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for having me.